in conclusion, the things you want to pay attention to if you are going to get a betta fish, they should not be your first fish. You should be an experienced fish keeper with nitrogen cycle and maintaining an environment and keeping animals alive before you get a betta fish. They are not ideal for first-time fish keepers. That's something to keep in mind. There are a few tricks you can do to make sure your betta fish is in optimal condition. Trick number 1, get a larger tank. Okay, 5.5 or larger, 10 gallons ideally. Trick number 2, get shrimp soil. I know it costs a little bit of money, but it will keep your fish alive for years and years and years, and it will alter your pH to the perfect level, and it will buffer it. We are getting a new shipment in the coming week, so stay tuned for that. If you want any, comment and let me know, or send me a private message. We can make that happen. We'll have a live stream unboxing, so you can pick your fish during that time. 150 new fish are arriving on the 8th of November, so about a week from the time you see this video, so stay tuned for that. And thank you so much for your continued support. If you find value in this video, give this video a thumbs up. If you have any questions, comment below.
Produced by Malik.
What is going on, FishTube? Welcome back to AquaMalik. It's another exciting day here in the fish room, everyone. And we're going to be talking about our favorite fish, the bettas. This is something I believe a lot of videos are made on. There's a ton of information on betta fish on YouTube. The one thing I found that every single one video failed to mention, it is the most important thing I believe for this animal, is the environmental requirement, which means what type of water does it naturally live in. A lot of the videos do mention using Indian almond leaves in your betta bowl or container or whatever it is that you are going to plan to keep your betta. I personally recommend a 5.5 gallon tank minimum for your betta fish, ideally a 10 gallon or larger. You can keep multiple bettas in a 10 gallon setup by using something like this. These breeder boxes allow me to keep multiple specimens in the same tank or in the same system without compromising space. So I can have many bettas this way. When I import and stuff, it makes it a lot easier for me. And the fish seem to get all the benefits of being in the larger tank without having any of the downsides of being in a large tank with all the other bettas, because they can kill each other if they are housed together. You can also find that sometimes these dividers, the slits and stuff in the dividers, their fins will go through when they're sleeping and stuff, and the one next door will take chunks out of it. So that's a possibility in this scenario, but the good thing is they are very good at healing. They heal quite fast. The fins grow back really fast. So it's not too much of an issue as long as you're keeping the animals in the right conditions. What I mean by that is the pH for these animals should be between 5 and 6.5. Anything above 7, 7.5, they're not designed to live in that environment long term. They will not die right away. They will not die within a day or two. A week might go by. You might not see a difference. A few weeks though, you're pushing it. Within 2 weeks, you will start noticing the fins clamping up, their fin tips turning pink, almost like ammonia burn. So you'll start seeing these signs, and eventually they will clamp up and the fish will not be able to swim properly. They'll just sit on the corner and then it will die. So you can cut the fins off and try to heal it that way. You can put some salt and stuff. That seems to help a little bit. But the main important thing is to avoid this from happening. Keep them in low pH environments, at least below 7, if possible below 6.5 ideally. How do you achieve that in a 5.5 gallon tank, especially if you don't have all these equipment, RO units and stuff? A lot of people that keep bettas are young, they don't have a lot of money, this is their first fish usually, which I don't recommend, but you know, a lot of times that is what it is. So there are a few tricks you can do to make sure your betta fish is in optimal condition. Trick number 1, get a larger tank. Okay, 5.5 or larger, 10 gallons ideally. Trick number 2, get shrimp soil. I know it costs a little bit of money, but it will keep your fish alive for years and years and years, and it will alter your pH to the perfect level, and it will buffer it. So any type of shrimp soil will work. If you're in Europe, buy Gold. If you're in Canada or the US, you can use Tropica, or you know, like things like that. have a small layer of shrimp soil at the bottom of your tank. It's also called planted tank substrate, pH buffering, okay? So that's the first thing you want to use in your tank to set up your tank, and then you can also plant in it, so you're going to enrich the animal's life as well as providing the most ideal conditions for the animals, okay? I know a lot of people on YouTube and stuff have these really small, well curated, planted, displays with their bettas and stuff, but those are very short-term tanks. Unless they're an advanced master fish keeper and a master aquascaper, chances are they just set it up, just put the fish in, take videos, and put the fish back into their display. So that's something to keep in mind. A lot of times the animal that might not live in that tiny little enclosure long term. Even in my setups here, you might see these animals in these smaller boxes, but this box is attached to a 45-gallon tank with water constantly flowing through it. And so it's actually living in 45 gallons of water, not a quarter of a gallon of water. And these are holding containers for these animals until they get sold or sent out to a new owner, or whatever. So that's something to keep in mind. So pH is important. Shrimp soil helps with maintaining your pH. If you do not want to invest into shrimp soil, you can use Indian almond leaves or oak leaves. This is why they tell you bettas need Indian almond leaves, and you might have had a fish that gets sick, have clamped fins and stuff. You put a couple of Indian almond leaves and the fish comes back to life after a couple of days, and the reason for that is because the Indian almond leaves release acids and tannins, bringing the pH of your container down to an ideal level for the animal. Animal becomes healthier because it's in the ideal conditions. I do not understand why nobody talks about pH when it comes to these particular animals. Maybe they're considered not important or not valuable enough, or nobody has thought about it. But the reason the almond leaves or oak leaves help the animal heal and live longer and do better is because of the pH, alteration of the pH. So that's the key that I want to make that nobody else seems to have made. So that's point number 2. If you don't want to use pH altering substrate, then using oak leaves and things like that will work with your tank to keep it at an ideal pH for the animal. The next thing is, when you are doing water changes, a lot of people will find out that their tank pH will be lower than the water that's coming out of the tap, and you don't want to shock your fish. You might be a little worried. And what you can do to fix that issue is to have a 5.5 gallon bucket like this one over here, and have the water sitting in there for a few days. Have your Indian almond leaves also in the bucket, so that helps alter the pH in the bucket closer to the tank pH before you do the water change, so that you can put water closer to the pH of the tank. The one thing I do want to say is bettas are quite resilient to pH shifts. So you can take a betta in a 5 pH tank, put it in a tank with 7.5 pH water, and the animal will not react to that right away. Okay? So that's something good about this animal. They can adapt really fast to changing pHs. So that's why when people have a small bowl with Indian almond leaves and they put water in there with 8 pH without even testing, that animal doesn't die as long as the person continues to put Indian almond leaves. Because if you continue to put almond leaves into the water, then over a couple of days the pH goes down to where it's ideal for the animal, and it's happy there. The 1 or 2 days where it's not ideal, it's not just gonna die. So that's something to keep in mind. Okay, so that's important, and that should be point number 2. And point number 3 is food, and I believe this is very well covered. There are betta specific foods, so you guys can find this information quite easily. I feed Dr. Bassleer's and Ebo and bug bites to my betta fish. Pretty much those 3 food on a rotation, and also discus food when I don't have Ebo. And they love that stuff. Bassleer being the most staple in diet, and it doesn't cloud my water, and it's great. They eat it. I put a little bit, about 20 pellets per fish, 20 small micro pellets. So and that seems to be enough for the fish every day. If I feed more than that, they do seem to develop a little bit of fat, so you don't want to overfeed them. They're small animals, small digestive tract, so make sure you don't overfeed this animal because they can develop bloat, and it's very difficult to fix it once they do. So you want to avoid that before it happens. So in conclusion, the things you want to pay attention to if you are going to get a betta fish, they should not be your first fish. You should be an experienced fish keeper with nitrogen cycle and maintaining an environment and keeping animals alive before you get a betta fish. They are not ideal for first-time fish keepers. That's something to keep in mind. The tank size, point number one, quite important. You want to have a large enough tank so that you can maintain a balanced environment over a long period of time, and it's easier to do water changes. In a larger tank you can do small water changes and it won't alter the chemistry as much as opposed to a small 1 gallon tank. You take half gallon water out, you've done a 50% water change, you've altered the chemistry of that water quite significantly, depending on what has happened in the tank and what's going on in your municipal water source. So that's something to keep in mind. You cannot keep them in these small boxes unless they're attached to a large tank beside it with water flowing in. If that's the case, you can keep several of them in a small box divided amongst each other without any issues. The second point is the pH. Very important for its survival. The animal can live 5 to 7 years in the right conditions with a low pH environment, with the right diet. They will do really well long term. They're a great pet, very personable. But if your pH is not ideal, if your pH is above 7 or 7.5, especially with these long fin varieties, they will not make it for a decent amount of time even. Within a few weeks to a month or two, they will die on you, so that's something to keep in mind. If you don't want your fish to die, keep it in the proper pH. These guys, between 5 and 6.5 ideally. If you want to keep it a little bit higher, between 6.5 and 7 is okay. It's above 7.5, definitely not okay. Indian almond leaves help with that. Shrimp soil helps maintain a low pH in your tank and stable pH over time. Also, oak leaves work really well. So keep that in mind when you are setting up your betta tank. And food-wise, you want to feed them a high-quality food, lots of protein, and don't feed too much. Feed small amounts. And that's another reason why you feed high quality food. That way you don't have to feed so much to give the animal a lot of nutrition. You can also feed live food. I will stay away from frozen bloodworms though, because they can cause bloat sometimes in these particular fish, and you don't want to have the animal catch bloat because it is very difficult to treat it once it does get bloat. Same thing with the fin issue. So you don't want to have the fin issues. This guy's freaking out right now because I'm sitting beside the container. But yeah, they are quite pleasurable fish. Quite magnificent, quite fun to watch and stuff like that. We are getting a new shipment in the coming week, so stay tuned for that. If you want any, comment and let me know, or send me a private message. We can make that happen. We'll have a live stream unboxing, so you can pick your fish during that time. 150 new fish are arriving on the 8th of November, so about a week from the time you see this video, so stay tuned for that. Thank you so much for watching the video till the end. If you find value in this type of content, give this video a thumbs up. If you are new here, subscribe and hit that notification icon so you do not miss out on these cool videos. And if you have any questions or comments or want me to clarify anything or any suggestions, comment below. If you have a different experience, comment below. If you have similar experiences, comment below. Let me know your thoughts. I want to know what you think so we can communicate and collaborate and get a better understanding of how we can keep our fish happy and healthy and live a very long and healthy life. Thank you so much for your continued love and support. I will see you guys on the next video. I love you all. God bless you.
Produced by Malik.